Hi, I'm Theron Ramacharaka, recording here on this Hewlett Packard instead of my Mac Airbook. My Mac Airbook took a final dump. It no longer will work, and I could sure use another one if you guys can help me out with that. My continuing uploads of my pre-recorded William Walker Atkinson books narrations depends on it. So if you can help me out with that, that'd be great. And also, another preliminary note here. If you like this video, thumbs up, please. If you like this channel, subscribe, share, so others can experience the pleasure and the joy of this channel. Okay, moving forward. Moving forward, in the previous video, my previous upload, what is it? William Walker Atkinson and Universal Laws. I guess this is a part 2. I don't know. Something like that. Because I was discussing how, when he narrowed down to 7 universal laws, which I say that he did quite well, in my opinion. I discussed, I mentioned how that these laws all work together. They're kind of like the 7. None is more fundamental than the other, and they're all required, and they're all sufficient together. They work to make things happen the way they do. Okay. To bring about conscious substance in motion. All right. So, we could compress the 7 together so hard that maybe they'd look like just one thing happening, one law, the law, let's call it. I mentioned that in that video. So that they're all working together. And, Atkinson makes inferences here and there in the arcane teaching and also in the follow-up arcane formulas that he wrote about how they work together, and in the arcane formulas about some applications of this knowledge, of this understanding of how they work together. But I have a slightly different way of talking about how they work together, and I gave part of that, some of that, in that prior video, William Walker Atkinson and Universal Laws. I figured I'd just continue a little bit here. Now, I was bringing into play, what did I talk about? Order and sequence, the law of order, the law of sequence, the law of opposites. I brought that in a little bit. What else? The law of analogy. Okay. There are others. Law of balance. For example, I forget the 7th one. I don't know. And there was rhythm. I talked about rhythm just briefly, just mentioned it. There's one more. I keep having trouble finding that one or remembering it off the top of my head. Anyway, I just to continue a little bit, let's say things work in accordance with opposites, all right? All action, let's just go into that a little bit. I was talking about an essentially electrical nature to things, and we refer to that when we talk about, when we translate or interpret the law of opposites into a principle of operation that we call polarity. And when we talk about polarity, at the bottom of it, that's an electrical thing. We talk about things happening at certain frequencies. So is that. And I suggested that it's likely the case that prana itself, universal prana, vril, the life force, the Holy Ghost, is electrical. That is an electrical thing. And, then we can find the law of the universal principle of operation of polarity right there. It's there to talk about. So, yes, movement. The motion part of conscious substance in motion. The substance, I guess, would be primarily an electrical thing, prana, or stuff, and it has this living aspect to it. Prana, it can act. All right, it can act. It can experience. It can control itself. All right, and the actual stuff of it, at the bottom of it, may be prana. Okay, electrical stuff happening in accordance with on and off states and mathematical operations. Conscious substance in motion. Okay, that motion takes place All action takes place between poles. Polarity, right? Between opposites. Things move toward this pole or that pole. And to achieve poise in any of this for ourselves, we have to find that balance between poles in all things. From a point of poise, like kind of like a point of balance among things, among poles, we then have there's less rock and roll going on. There's more stillness. There's more balance, all right? And at a point of poise, we can then move upward by analogy, to a next level, an evolved level of experience, of operation. Otherwise, we'd be just continuing to go around in a rhythmic circle, right? We can raise levels, but there has to be some point of balance before that can happen. Excuse me. Coffee with a little chocolate in it. Not bad. And French vanilla creamer. Not bad. Not bad. Well, all right. So there. Now we have a little bit more, and you see things happen when they're happening in a natural progression of involvement. They work toward more balance. This would be a natural state, physically, with respect to at least the human heart. We call a point of balance. We call that homeostasis. Like its home position is, Aristotle pointed out that things move toward a final cause. And he also pointed out opposites again. Things take place between poles. And we need to focus our attention, which is the ability to do so, comes about by the power of will. And what's the stuff that that will puts into action to achieve that result? It's prana, vril, life force. That's the stuff that actually does the moving behind the scenes. All right. Conscious substance in motion. Okay. So when we have, a really negative state of affairs, we want to polarize that, right? We want to bring it to a point of balance. So we focus on the opposite. Here again now, I mentioned in a recent video about attention. What is the main tool for any kind of personal growth, or for anything to get done, really? It's the ability to control attention. And the secret to continuing to hone in on what you want your attention to focus on isn't a matter of focusing on what you don't want, by way of saying, I don't want that. I want, I'm going to stay away from my focus on that. Well, that just draws you toward that. It's an act of the subconscious mind, stated in that video, so not here. But that's how it works. We want to the secret is to keep honing in on the pole that we want to move toward. Along some line from one pole to the other that will give us a point of balance, bring us to a point of balance, polarize affairs. This is more talk about how these laws work together. This is what happens. This is what works when we intentionally and knowledgeably, knowingly, believedly, trustingly gear our operations according to these laws, working together, the better the result for us. Because why? Well, I don't know. That's because that's the way stuff works. We're just getting in tune with it. But I've also pointed out lately, elsewhere, that insofar as this is universal stuff at work, well, it can be done. It applies to everything. So whatever way your motives want to take you with this, it will work. So be careful about your motives. That part is certainly up to you. Just be careful, because this is the same set of stuff. This is the same 7 things that can be intentionally or even unintentionally employed for destruction. You think destruction and devolvement are going to operate by a different set of principles and laws than does their opposites, construction and evolvement? No, it's the same stuff at work. Same stuff, same methods of operation, same principles of operation, same universal laws. They're universal. So what you do with this information has to do with your motives. And the quality of the result will depend on your motives, and the quantity of it will depend on your earnestness. That just makes sense. It's logical, and it rings intuitively true. And it is true, because it corresponds with reality. All right, so this was just a little more about how things work, how these laws work together. I've talked a little about rhythm now in these 2 videos put together. Order, sequence, balance, opposites, analogy. How many was that? 6? I missed the 7th one again. Whatever it is, it's in there. It's in there, like good spaghetti sauce. But is the basil in it? It's in there. Are there tomatoes in there? Plum tomatoes? It's in there. Yeah. All right. All 7 are in there. Conscious substance in motion. Prana, the life in things. Conscious substance in motion. So I suggest to you that if you want to attain greater self-mastery, greater mental discipline, greater personal involvement, movement toward true selfhood, greater understanding of how stuff works, any of these things, that you get familiar with such basics, learn how the basics fit together, that each basic, each primitive is a different aspect of some one thing always going on here now. And how you can gear things up in a way towards being an antidote to things that would work against it. And there are a lot of such things. Things working against your own involvement. Your own becoming more than what you are in a constructive way. In a constructive and evolving way. A way that opens for more of such. In the short term and the long term. Well, get familiar with them and then be careful what your motives are. Temptation is all over the place to become a predator on other people's development and a parasite on it such that it thwarts theirs and enhances yours in the direction you're going. In my opinion, anybody that has to be a predator on other people's energy and then be a parasite on it, you clear away the smoke. At the end of the day, you're just a weakling. If you have to do that. Claim your own! All right, man. I'm Theron Ramacharaka. Be well.